We're Team 1 from the Cathedral and John Connon School, representing Team India at the World Economics Cup final. This is a presentation for the Thinking and Innovation round. My name is Aditya Agarwal, and my teammates are Noel Chandy, Kavish Pathak, Vihan Gupta, Vyom Gupta, and Anush Agarwal. Let's get started.
So to the first question, rising land prices due to urban development significantly affect the viability of traditional farming. As cities expand, the land used for crops could generate much higher returns if used for housing or commercial projects, which increases the opportunity cost of farming. Traditional farms also face higher fixed costs and diminishing returns since producing more requires more labor and land, making them less profitable. Vertical farming, on the other hand, requires minimal land and relies heavily on technology like artificial lighting and controlled environments. This allows it to maintain efficiency and profitability even when land is scarce or expensive, making it economically viable. When considering expansion, a vertical farm must evaluate several economic factors. Capital costs, such as advanced lighting systems or hydroponic equipment, determine the upfront investment needed. Operating costs, including energy, labor, and maintenance, affect ongoing efficiency and profitability. Market demand is critical as expansion only makes sense if there are enough customers willing to buy the additional produce. And future crop prices influence long-term returns as falling prices could reduce the benefits of expansion. This decision can be framed using the marginal analysis model, which is marginal revenue equal to marginal cost. A farm should expand output until the additional revenue from one more unit equals the additional cost of producing it. This ensures profit is maximized while carefully balancing cost, demand, and risk from future price fluctuations. We can go to the second question.
Price stability refers to maintaining relatively constant price levels over time, and vertical farming can contribute to this, especially in urban markets. It locates production within cities, reducing transport costs and delays. This makes the supply chain more reliable, reducing exposure to supply-side shocks like fuel price changes and logistics disruptions. Additionally, they operate in controlled environments. This protection from weather fluctuations and pest infestations ensures a relatively steady output, preventing seasonal shortages. Moreover, this improves land use efficiency by stacking crops upwards rather than outwards. Farmers can produce more per square meter, reducing the cost of land per unit of output and requiring less land to be purchased to increase output, keeping average and marginal costs lower and more stable over time. These factors, including fewer input constraints, shorter production time from controlled environments, and greater spare capacity, increase the price elasticity of supply, meaning producers can expand output quicker when prices rise, reducing price volatility. However, the need for continuous power poses a major challenge. Fluctuations in energy prices can raise production costs and make supply less elastic, reducing long-term price stability. In the diagram, traditional farming S1 shows a relatively inelastic supply. When demand rises from D1 to D2, there's a relatively greater price rise from P1 to P3. In contrast, vertical farming S2 shows a greater elasticity, and so the demand increase brings a relatively smaller price increase. Thus, by increasing supply elasticity, vertical farming cushions price fluctuations and promotes price stability in urban food markets. You can go to the next one.
As urban land prices rise and supply chains tighten, vertical farming redefines agriculture by reducing the opportunity cost of land use and freeing urban space for higher value activity. Beginning with capital deepening and productivity automation, AI and climate control systems raise capital per worker and total factor productivity. Fixed capital substitutes for land, improving resource efficiency. As productivity rises, the long-run average cost curve shifts downward, each worker now producing more value at a lower cost. These gains drive economies of scale and cost dynamics. Though fixed costs are high, expanding output spreads them over more production, lowering average and marginal costs. Vertical farms also achieve economies of scope by growing multiple crops within one system, maximizing capacity and reducing waste. Collectively, these productivity gains shift the long-run aggregate supply rightward, supporting non-inflationary growth. In terms of market structure, high setup costs and specialized technology create strong barriers to entry and short-term monopolistic power. Early firms earn abnormal profits and differentiate on freshness and sustainability. Yet this is not a pure monopoly. As technology diffuses, contestability rises, new entrants emerge, and price moves towards competitive equilibrium. Technology also generates positive externalities. Efficient lighting, water recycling, and shorter supply chains reduce social costs, placing the social marginal cost curve below the private one. Governments reinforce this through subsidies or carbon credits, aligning private returns with social welfare. In the long run, sustained innovation and scaling lower costs stabilize prices and expand consumer welfare. The downward LRAC shift marks the transition from high-cost experimentation to efficient urban production. Vertical farming evolves into a self-reinforcing growth driver, merging technology, sustainability, and productivity. In summary, high capital costs bring temporary monopolistic gains, but diffusion and scale restore competition. Costs fall, accessibility rises, and consumer surplus expands. Vertical farming ultimately proves that when innovation scales, efficiency and sustainability can grow together. Next.
Yes, now for the problem statement, we're looking at a city where there's a vertical farming project, cost is 10% of the fiscal revenue, build time is around 5 years, and returns are uncertain. Hence, the city will not self-fund. Measure one is a subsidized PPP, which is open to private social capital. Use output-linked subsidies, cap growths, and lower required returns. And we will also limit use by sunsets, which stipulate the time to end policy, and KPIs, which are key performance indicators. Measure 2 looks at a cooperative will with a consortium of farmers, firms, and community they share construction and the operating risk and ties funding to milestones. And measure 3 looks at public investment platforms which citizens subscribe with tax incentives, mobilizes household savings, and stages inflows to match construction. We can move on to the first slide, which looks at measure 1. Okay, fine. So measure 1 basically introduces a public-private partnership model through social capital investment. Instead of relying solely on government spending, the project opens its doors to private and community of investors, which we call social capital. The government supports them with targeted incentives like payments per kilogram of produce delivered within city limits or capped capital expenditure grants. Through this, we're looking at closing the financing gap during the crucial 5-year construction period, accelerating investment by bringing capital forward, and avoid over subsidization since payments are actually tied to actual output and not blanket incentives. The subsidy incidence map on the side shows how this balance is achieved. Government flows supports downstream only when measurable production targets are met, creating a transparent line between investment and social gain. We can move on to slide 2. Slide 2 basically shows us the people who are going to be benefiting. For the governments and city authorities, the key interest is the public money buys outcome. They pay per kilogram delivered in the city, rewarding actual performance. When supply grows, consumers enjoy lower prices and indicated that subsidies are reaching the right people. The government's main responsibility here is monitoring elasticity, as we can see in the graph provided on the right. Social investors seek stability and clarity. Their confidence depends on predictable milestone-based disbursements and contracts that tie revenue directly to performance. The government, in turn, must publish transparent data on production so investors can verify returns. Consumers and communities want reliability, consistent supply, quality produce, and fair pricing. Their welfare improves when the market becomes more elastic and competitive, which is also depicted on the graph on the right. And finally, traditional farmers and small enterprises are crucial partners. Including them through the training process and technical support ensures that the system grows inclusively. We can move on to the next slide. Finally, at slide 3, we can see the innovative S-curve, which is depicted. In the short run, in 1 to 3 years, the government's time-bound support and bankable contracts help the project cross its inflection point, which is the line where the dotted line is drawn. And this means that vertical farming facilities start operating sooner, easing supply bottlenecks and preventing price spikes during the learning phase. As we move on to the long run, 3 years and beyond, the project transitions from dependency to self-sufficiency. Continuous learning and R&D improvements yields automation and logistics productivity rises, lowering the levelized cost of produce. Hence, in summary, Measure 1 is about de-risking the start, crowding in investment, and institutionalizing efficiency. It sets the foundation for the later measures to build upon. Or we can go on to Measure 2.
Measure 2 is a cooperative build. Farmers, businesses, and the community co-participate in construction over 5 years, spreading early risk across many balance sheets. On the chart, the x-axis is year 0 to 5. Stacked bands show how each group's planned capital per year. The key is the shape. Contributions peak in core build years and tapered commissioning, meaning capital arrives when it's needed. The city's job is to pace and coordinate those bands so site work is never cash-starved. Moving on to the next slide, we see that after launch, benefits are concrete. Closer, fresher food, lower waste and transport, training pathways, and green jobs. Stakeholders' needs are clear. Farmers want predictable offtake and a fair link between build input and future access. Businesses want clear scopes, timelines, and priceable risk. Communities want ways to participate and affordable produce. The city wants durable support for an asset with uncertain returns. The heat map is the governance blueprint. Rows are stakeholder groups, columns are financial, schedule, market, operational. Risks with darker cells meaning greater ownership. For financial, city and businesses back funding and step in on shocks. For schedule, procurement and works owner prevent slippage. For market, farmers and businesses secure demand and offtake. For operational, businesses deliver readiness. The city sets standards and acceptance. The value isn't the numbers, but clarity. Issues route to owners, disputes revert to the matrix, and the coalition stays stable. Preserving co-op upsides which are mobilized, capital, aligned incentives, and legitimacy, while containing downsides which are coordination costs, free riding, and monitoring. Moving on to the next slide, we see that cash needs are lumpy. In the line chart, gold is cumulative requirement and blue is cumulative cooperative commitments. The operating rule is simple. Keep blue on or above gold at every gate, verify before milestones, and trigger pre-agreed backstops if a gap opens. After commissioning, construction participation converts into durable benefits, access rights, supply agreements, education programs, and community pricing, so the cooperative stays valuable and trusted over time. Moving on to Measure 3. Measure 3 turns citizens into investors via City platform, which tax credits tied to contribution size. Economically, it unlocks local savings and converts civic support into deployable capital. On the investor segment chart, small tickets dominate early as people test the waters. As visible progress and clear reporting builds trust, medium and large tickets grow, deepening and stabilizing the pool. That diversity matters. If one segment slows, others can carry momentum. The platform's job is to keep all segments engaged with clear timelines, simple onboarding, and predictable tax credit processing. Moving on to the next slide, we see that after launch, benefits compound. Citizens gain real co-ownership, produce arrives fresher with less waste, the farms become hubs for training, school, and community programs, and a local supplier cluster forms. Stakeholder needs are specific. Citizens want plain terms, upfront risks and fees, reliable tax credits, easy entry and exit. Developers want predictable drawdowns matched to the build and stable incentive policy. Communities want fair micro investment access and regular updates. The city wants scale without overstretching its budget and strong compliance. The elasticity curve shows why calibration matters. Raising the credit boost participates sharply until a knee, after which extra subsidy buys little extra coverage. We need to set the rate near that knee to maximize uptake per unit of foregone tax. Governance must lock this in. Standardized offer docs, KYC and privacy, dashboards, and clear contractual risk ownership to keep retail participation safe and credible while containing coordination, suitability, and compliance burdens. Moving on to the next slide, we see that retail inflows are pulsed while construction cash needs are lumpy. The inflow buffer chart pairs monthly subscriptions with the outflow curve and a target buffer band. The operating rule is simple. Keep the smoothed inflow within that band above requirements at each gate so work never pauses. If inflow dips, open a short subscription window or trigger step-in tools. If they surge, cap the window and carry forward. After commissioning, sustain investor support through regular reporting, site access days, and community programs so the platform remains a durable civic asset into operations.
Moving on then into our conclusion. On every economic test, on capital efficiency, risk clarity, and fiscal discipline, Measure 1 performs best. First clash on capital mobilization and speed to commissioning. Measure 1 delivers the fastest scale through outcome-linked contracts and professional developers. Private lenders can underwrite milestone cash flows, so capital commits early and schedules hold. Measure 2 is slower due to multi-party coordination across a 5-year build. Measure 3 depends on retail inflows that fluctuate with incentives. Measure 1 minimizes time to output and achieves the lowest cost of capital per unit of capacity. Second clash on governance clarity and execution risk. Measure 1 concentrates accountability under one developer with KPIs, milestones, and pay-for-performance clauses, reducing agency and coordination costs. Measure 2 diffuses responsibility, raising decision and monitoring load. Measure 3 adds heavy compliance, suitability, and data protection obligations. Measure 1 thus secures predictable delivery and lower transaction cost per rupee spend. The third clash is on fiscal exposure and policy discipline. Measure 1's auctioned subsidies and performance-based payments are bounded by sunset clauses and measurable results, which keeps liabilities capped. Measure 2, on the other hand, faces early capital gaps and continuity risk, and so does Measure 3 have low upfront costs, but ongoing tax expenditure and oversight burden. Measure 1 thus preserves fiscal sustainability while retaining investment incentives. The fourth clash is the legitimacy and inclusion clash. Measure 1 can embed SME access rules, open standards, and vendor diversity targets to secure legitimacy. Measure 2 offers the strongest community inclusion but slower delivery. Measure 3 also builds civic ownership, but it has severe funding volatility. That is why Measure 1 balances inclusion with execution and efficiency. The last clash is the one on social benefit timing and price stability. Measure 1 brings benefits earlier, fresher produce, jobs, and low price volatility through faster commissioning and learning incentives. Measure 2 might build durable capability, but this comes later, and Measure 3's gains depend on retail flows. The conclusion is that Measure 1 front load welfare and stabilizes prices sooner. At the end, Measure 1 yields the highest social return per rupee of public risk. It is fast, accountable, and fiscally bounded, making it the most practical and economically efficient path for the city's vertical farming rollout. Thank you.